Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Phoebe Mora, Director of Lutherans Restoring Creation, and I welcome everybody here. Really excited to have you all here for kind of our holiday festive wrap up of the end of the year. Um, and as I just said, but forgot to hit record, I'm about to share a Christmas melody. And if no one's ever heard of a cranky, you can put in the chat if you know what a cranky is, but you're going to be watching art from a cranky right now. This is from Tom and Amelia, I will send you a link to all of their stuff. They'll be joining us in North Carolina, and I'm excited to share some of their work with you and get us in the mood.
Place a lit candle inside the window that says you're welcome here, stranger. A night such as this can be lonesome and cold. Would you have provided the manger? Still a star shines in the distance, brighter than all, a true guiding light, lighting the way for the weak and the weary, a promise of hope on a cold Christmas night. Outside the air can cut like a razor. How blessed we are to be warm here inside. It's all by the grace of our newborn Savior. So how could we leave even one man denied? Still a star shines in the distance, brighter than all, a true guiding light, lighting the way for the weak and the weary, a promise of hope on a cold Christmas night. Rejoice, rejoice in Christ the Lord. The season sings of the Savior. Make room in your heart to share His love for all of the world, your neighbor. Still a star shines in the distance, brighter than all, a true guiding light, lighting the way for the weak and the weary, a promise of hope on a cold Christmas night. Still a star shines in the distance, brighter than all, a true guiding light, lighting the way for the weak and the weary, a promise of hope on a cold Christmas night.
Yay. So I will share in the link with you their YouTube channel so you can explore some more of that. Oh, Kathy, I love to see a kitten hugging you. Welcome everyone. Again, those of you who came in late, that is from two musicians that will be joining us in North Carolina. So I'm really excited to tempt you coming just to be able to hear from them as well. What I had mentioned before is that I'm recording now because some other people that couldn't make it tonight want to hear what we've been up to and what the scene is, but then I will stop recording so we can speak amongst ourselves in a more comfortable fashion as well, an intimate fashion. I was going to start off at the kind of highest global or broadest global level and share a bit of a recording from not the whole recording because she had a lot to share and we don't have that much time, but my colleague Elena Cedillo was able to share a little bit. It was literally hours after she got off the plane from COP30 that she helped share with a class a little bit about what her wrap up was from COP30. And I will tell you that I'm kind of going to jump in where she was saying the outcomes. I have to admit, I'm also trying to keep the mood a little lighter. What she said before this point, she's sharing pictures. I wanted to share the pictures with you all. But overall, for the 30 minutes before, she did get into, for one thing, I'm sure Barbara can help support this as well. It was really hot, so hot that it was probably really hard to take in information. It was well over 100 and humid. So she went over that, the fact that there were just too many things to go to all at once. And also to what you'll see in this first slide, she just does kind of go over the fact that all of the typical talking points at this conference of parties, this 30th round of the conference of parties, said that they were going to talk more about implementation. Again, said a lot of stuff, but didn't really show the path towards that, is kind of the overview that she took in. So I'm curious, Barbara, I'm sure that you can share more, but I will first start off by just playing a little bit from what I'm sorry, and Elena Cedillo is the climate change coordinator. I forget her whole title, but she works at Lutheran World Federation. And as I said, this is just hours of that she was off the plane sharing this before she even had chance for dinner. So here we go. Interrupt me if
The
you can't.
Lutheran World Federation follows at the negotiations. There are other topics, but we are just following some of them. You can see that at the COP, they are discussing many topics at the same time. So it's if you participate for the first time, it's easy to be lost on all these conference and rooms. But from our perspective, we are following mainly these themes of the topic of the COP. No, I also would like to share with you some photos because this year we had a very strong civil society participation. So there were many events during COP. So during the first week, we have the COP, no? But we have also the People Summit, and we have the Interfaith Tapiri, that was another group of events that happened at the Anglican Cathedral in Belém. So the photo here in my left, it's one from the vigil organized by the Tapiri. And on the other side, you can see representative from faith-based organization organizing a COP press conference in the venue, in the official venue. So for me, was really good to see all this dynamic, all this energy, but at the same time, it's hard for us to follow many things, no? Especially when you are at COP and you have accreditation. I think the main objective is to engage with the negotiators, with the government representative, to discuss with them what is happening, to share with them your position papers, the views from the faith-based organization. So having the Tapiri and the People Summit at the same time for us was difficult to be everywhere, no? So these are also some photos from the interfaith dialogue that we co-organized together with the Interfaith Liaison Committee to the UNFCCC. This happened at the beginning of the COP. So every year, this Talanoa dialogue happen, and the idea is to gather as a faith base, as a people of faith, and discussing what will be our main role during COP, revise our position paper, and also this year we discussed about the ethical stock take at COP. The people, the march, the demonstration, this time was really, really huge and was really good to be with all of our colleagues there in the demonstration at the end of the first week. I think we didn't have a march in the last three COPs. So this COP was really to brings a lot of energy, being with all of our colleagues from other faith-based organizations, but also with others from other NGOs and civil society organizations and representatives. So we also had the opportunity to raise our voice during COP with a press conference. So the first photo was about representative from the Interfaith Liaison Committee. And here we have the voices of young people also talking about what is needed, why parties need to take strong decisions on COP. So also it's an opportunity to close or to highlight some of the campaigns that there were probably many campaigns, but I am showing you the campaign that we have organized before COP. Was a tree planting campaign. The name in Spanish is Sembrando el Camino hacia la COP 30, no? Sowing the plan to COP, sowing the path to COP 30. Many churches around South America and Central America plant trees, native trees. They were also organizing some events during in combination with planting trees. So civil society also has their moment at the COP. There was the people's plenary when just at the end of the COP, well, all representatives participating at COP, accredited as an observer, can engage in a dialogue. So this is a photo from the people's plenary, just before the closing plenary at COP. As you can see, many indigenous people in participating in the COP, no? But still, in my opinion, there is still much, there is not really a mechanism for vulnerable communities, I can say, to engage with the negotiations, no? Because this is party-driven event. So we can be there as observers, but still at COP they already took the decisions before. So that's why I think it's critical to engage with the representative from governments in your own country, no, before COP, no, when you can discuss with them the national adaptation plans, when you can discuss the national determined contributions, when you can discuss the implementation of the loss and damage fund. So I think you can do also a lot in your own country. You know? And at COP, it's important to be there, it's important to be represented, it's important to follow the negotiations, also to make this link between what is discussing at the global level and how all these global decisions need to be implemented at the national level. No? Because at the end, what you really need is to change the people's life, no? To have really strong climate policies at the national level. But sometimes there is a gap between the discussion at the global level and what is happening at the community level. So that's why I think it's also important to continue following these global processes. No? So I will stop here.
So I will stop there as well. And I do want to get into more conversation, but if you can take notes on questions you have, we're going to keep rolling kind of with the idea of that big circle of global. And as Elena was just saying, thinking about how we take things from these global conversations to a national and regional level. We're going to hear a little bit about our local/regional ELCA. I think some of you, let me see if I can find, okay, there's the recording. I think some of you might have taken the survey that came out from Eco America's Blessed Tomorrow. And that survey, she will go over, I'm going to have Mariam here. Again, I'm using other people's voices that's already recorded. So we welcome these speakers from way back in time. But the Blessed Tomorrow group is really great at, they know how to do behavioral research studies. They know how to use the survey companies that we need to make sure that these are statistically relevant numbers. But our job, and we see the ELCA's job, is taking some of this information and figuring out what are we going to do with it. So the next in our series of going from global and looking at interfaith groups talking about global climate change issues to what does our church seem to think about these things. So the people that are next to us in the pews and our fellow members in churches, I'm going to share our survey results. I'm just going to share the first 3 minutes of this video and then share some slides. So bear with me. Sharing her.
Just confirming that you all can see my screen. All right, perfect. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. Very excited to share the 2025 American Climate Metric Survey results with all of you. Sorry about that. So before I dig into the findings, I'll briefly go over the methodology. ELCA ACMS survey fielded from May 13th to June 30th to ELCA members who completed the survey hosted by SurveyMonkey. And we received a total of 1570 complete responses. The margin of error for the sample is plus and minus 3%. And please note that in the slides ahead, ELCA member respondents will be referred to as ELCA in the findings. And the National ACMS survey was fielded from June 26 to July 4th using the same enterprise solution with a qualified nationally representative sample of people, which basically means that the data was census balanced across key demographics. And we received a total of 1,013 complete responses. And the margin of error for this sample is also plus and minus 3%. So moving to our first findings, here we see two sets of graphs. The graph on the left is showing personal concern and the graph on the right is showing perceived concern. And we see that a total of 76% of ELCA say that they're personally concerned about climate change, including 59% who say that they're very concerned, which is nearly actually more than 1.5 times when comparing to the national results. And when looking at perceived concern, we see that 45% of ELCAs think that other people around them are concerned about climate change, including 9% who think that others are very concerned, when in reality, more than six times are in fact, more than six times are in fact concerned, which reveals strong pluralistic ignorance. And this is even stronger for ELCA compared to national because they're more concerned, but they feel even more alone. And if we measure this perception gap, we see that like the difference between 76% and 45% is around 31 points, whereas the difference between 71 and 56 is around 15. So the pluralistic ignorance is twice in among ELCA members compared to national results.
And I'll just jump in and say why that's meaningful is that when people feel alone, then they're less ready to engage. They feel that it's riskier to engage. And by even letting them know that most folks are concerned around them, it opens up their willingness and feeling of safety to engage on this issue. And so it's a really important factor in helping to move ELCA forward is letting folks know they're not alone. Yeah. Gabriel. So this is when we kind of not went off the rails, but got into a great conversation that I don't necessarily want to take everybody to journey there as well. But one thing, and Gabrielle, if you wanted to share a little bit, I'll go through the slides now. But Gabrielle, if you wanted to lift up to one interesting point when we just think about who was taking this, who was responding to this survey, this year was a little different compared to last year. The first year that we asked our ELCA members to do this, it was a lot of Lutherans Restoring Creation putting it out there, and a lot of people who wanted to hear from people like us. So I feel like it was a little bit more from the choir, whereas this year we were I think Christine Moffat had mentioned this was the first time that we put it right out there on Facebook. Is that right, Gabrielle? So
yeah, that's right. That this got shared more widely in a wider ELCA network than just the Lutherans Restoring Creation or Creation Care-minded folks, which hopefully means that our sample was more representative of a diversity of thoughts. And yet we still saw similar results, some changes over 24 versus 25. There was a large negative reaction to the Facebook post that the ELCA put out, which can tell you something already about the diversity of thought in our denomination or how people perceive the ELCA. And yet, despite it getting caught in the algorithm and lots of people being very angry in the comments, the survey results still show that we are very concerned as a denomination at a higher percentage than the national average.
And I just appreciated that whole conversation too, that it did seem, especially from our great folks that work at ELCA doing research and data statistics, and they're taking all of that into account and recognize that these are kind of typical issues that they have with how we collect information and how this bears out. But I did really want you all to hear that from Megan, that our denomination kind of reflects what they see everywhere, but even more so. I don't know if you've all heard of that. What was the pluralistic ignorance? That was the first time I had ever heard that term. But the idea that our particular family of religions seem to feel more alone than they really are, which I think theologically we should all kind of wrangle with as well. I'll share some more of these slides, but know that I will also post them so you can take a look at them at your leisure. But kind of what I'm asking all of you in our Lutherans Restoring Creation family is to think out how does what we're looking at here with what these 1,500 or so folks responded to, what does it mean we have to do as our network? So I'm grateful that Megan said that it's part of our work to make sure people don't feel alone. I do see here too that they were comparing a little bit from one year to the next as far as, it seems like maybe we're not as concerned about climate change. I also felt like going through the slides, it felt like there are just a lot of other things to be concerned about as well. So comparatively speaking, we're still pretty close to the top issue, but at the same time, as a church, you can see that we're more concerned about climate change than the national average. And these are all things that I think will be very interesting too as we move forward with a new leadership in our bishop's office. Some of these changes, again, I wanted to just clarify with them that these are not the same respondents from 2024 to 2025. So keep that in mind as well. Again, too, lots of other, important issues, but when they had to rate things, there just are a lot of issues that people are concerned about. I also really appreciate that they ask questions about how climate change has to do with people's health. And that's a question that they ask all of the denominations. So you can see that across the board. I'll also make sure to send you links as far as what their research shows for the faith communities overall, so that you can see how we fit into the larger landscape. Also, too, how climate change would affect the economy, pretty much right in line with the rest of the nation. I thought this was particularly interesting about where our ELCA members talk about climate change. So many of them talk about this with family and friends, much more than the national average. And not many people talk about it at church, but our folks talk about it a bit more. So that's good. Also, too, I was very proud. I hope that it only goes up, but with elected officials, right? Christine Moffat and her crew are able to help people figure out how to talk about this with elected officials and just, out there in the public. Let's see, other highlights. Just as far as what we call kind of personal discipleship, how people live this out in their life, conserving energy at home. Just the fact that a strong majority, again, of the folks that responded to the survey conserve energy at home in a variety of different ways. Shifts in actions a little bit, that there is some change, whether or not the advocacy has grown, especially with family and friends. So that's pretty good. And colleagues, more people are talking about it. Maybe some action has been declining. The questions for us as Lutherans Restoring Creation is working more with ELCA is, I'm going to scroll, don't get too dizzy here. Sorry, here we go. Again, what are we doing in our worshiping community? Compared to last year, would you say that your worshiping community's activity related to creation care has increased, decreased, remained the same, and not sure? So unfortunately, not that many people think that it's ramping up, and maybe that means it isn't. So where do we come into that, and what can we do about that? Because as Lutherans Restoring Creation, we do consider that to be mostly our job. And with ELCA, I do have to say I was really happy to see this, how our strong majority, twice as many as nationally, report that their religious beliefs compel them to address climate change. That's really important. 3.5 times as many ELCA agree versus disagree that their religious beliefs have a lot to do with this. They do want the ELCA to do more, and very much agree with that. 70% last year was a little bit more, but again, different people. And the shared values, I think this is really important to keep in mind, that we are all on board with this, but as far as how people feel like their churches are responding to this, that's I feel like where we have some work to do. So speaking of what kind of work we have to do, I'm going to hand the baton over to Gabrielle, who's going to give you a brief update as to what Lutherans Restoring Creation, especially through our strategic planning group, which God bless you all. There have been a group of people meeting for over a year, every month or so, thinking through, what does this mean for us? How do we, as a little nonprofit, do this work in the world, especially with a small budget? So over to you, Gabrielle.
I have some slides to share. Thank you for waiting for me to unmute. Yeah, as Phoebe said, we've been meeting for over a year, and it just takes time to collect the data and do this carefully. So just to set your expectations, I'll be talking a lot about context. And our very last slide will be strategic recommendations, which we're still working on. We're not ready to present you exactly with what our plan is and recommendations are, but just to give you a checkup at where we are in the process. Yeah, like I said, we did a lot of time just surveying the landscape. Things like that American Climate Survey data helped us understand that, as well as other sources of data that we've collected through synods and also, oh, I'm trying to remember what else. But we've done that in a couple of different ways. We know that ELCA congregations lack awareness about the social statements, even though we have great social statements talking about our duty to creation and our Kairos moment of climate change. And we have study guides. People still aren't always aware of that. That didn't come up in the 2025 data, but I believe that was something we asked on our Form C, which is a survey put out by the ELCA. Only 8% of ELCA members hear about climate change in a sermon, and 6% of them talk about climate change at church. I think we might need to update that with our 2025 numbers. But this means we have a lot of work to do, that the work is ongoing. Oops. That's right. As everybody on this call knows, our faith communities are essential to this, that we have not just a scientific, but a moral and ethical framework for tackling climate change that policymakers cannot necessarily, and we add a nuanced perspective. We can act as facilitators, educators, and connectors in these issues. We're not the only ones who are doing this. We work along partners, which I'm so glad we do. Ecumenically, Creation Justice Ministries, I believe Interfaith, Green Faith, the BTS Center, in our own Lutheran network, ecumenically, the Center for Climate Justice and Faith, and the Yale Center. So we're not the only ones doing this, but we do have a unique role. Our Lutheran specific theology, we have a long history of doing this, and we're really good at acknowledging some of those good old theological both ands and complications and holding multiple truths at one time. Analytical minds while being justice advocates. Our concept of neighbor love expanded to non-human creation, and this not just being a thing we do, another avenue, but hopefully our theology is bringing us to a place where care of creation is integrated into our worship life. That is part of everything that we do, and that we see ourselves as part of creations, not just like a hobby. As we collected data about our identity, we have a cute little word cloud over here about people's first impressions of LRC. People is really big: church, work, joy, creation, care, justice. These are the words that are sort of popping out across many people's answers. We're unique in that we're not part of Churchwide. I don't know if everybody on this call knows that, but we are not part of Churchwide. We are not funded from Churchwide. We are separate from Churchwide, and we bring change to them, and we advocate for change within the ELCA, things that have already happened, like green investing, and the 2022 memorial on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. That was huge. We're able to distribute and help synods make resolutions and memorials to push for creation care in our denomination widely. We also are acknowledging that we've grown a lot, particularly in the last 5 years. Phoebe can attest a little bit more to this, but we started as a collection of green sheep just needing community and connection and to not feel alone. And we have a much broader network. Much of that happened during COVID when online worship connected people to our resources. And we're just dealing with a bigger crowd, which is really good. We want to continue that trend. One thing that we acknowledge in taking stock of where we are as an organization is that everything we do, we are the only creation care organization that serves the entirety of the ELCA specifically. So that means we host and distribute worship resources, and we do outreach. I do outreach to churches, reaching out to new churches who aren't in our network. We have these connection calls that you're on now monthly. We host action plans. We get people to take action. We offer weekly lectionary commentaries. Are you starting to get dizzy yet? We also convene all of the ELCA Justice Orgs for climate on a quarterly basis. And at this point, I started thinking of all the other things that we do: memorials, Good Green News, collaborating with orgs, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm not going to name all of those things, but this was our huge discovery from taking stock of where we are, that we do a lot as an org. And we do all of this work on 35 hours a week between Phoebe and I both. We are 2 staff members. So we are flexible, I would say. Let's see. So the challenge is that people did not just name one thing of that giant list of things that we do that they really liked. Everybody named something different that they value us for, which is a challenge because we're a needed resource, but we're still relatively unknown outside of our network. I still find people who all the time are like, "Oh my gosh, there's an org that's doing this work. Well, that's great. I was just doing this on my own in my synod. I'm so glad to be connected." That being said, we are not able to juggle all of those balls elegantly right now with the staffing that we do have. So that is where I'm bringing you to, is our strategic recommendations. How do we deal with this challenge of many expectations and not enough time to do that? And Phoebe, I would welcome you to chime in at this part too. But we are currently clarifying our unique role and figuring out what is our priorities. In long term, we're trying to leverage those resources and rethink our board structure.
Yes. So thank you so much, Gabrielle. That was really amazing and very clear. And I have to say, too, I'm just so grateful to have been able to bring in Gabrielle so unfortunately, we had to take Gabrielle from being 40 hours a week when we had a Stewardship of Life Institute funding, which was wonderful. And I'm so grateful that it wasn't just a fellowship. It got to roll into Gabrielle as now an official part-time staff. But right, we could only take Gabrielle on part-time right now. And as you could see, there were a lot of things that we're doing. So to be able to ask for more money, most donors really want to have a very clear message as to what you're doing. And if you saw all those words that Gabrielle had up there, it's not real clear, right? Like it's a lot and it's not real. Oh, there we go. So that's what we're working on right away. I do feel like, and something I'll highlight before we're done with the call is, we do have a lot of people and a lot of different ways to tell our story. And one is from Baird Linke did a great 1 minute, great video that really is, it's just an invitation to not do this work alone. And that kind of invitation to not do this work alone is, I think, really at the center of why this network is needed. So immediately we need to figure out how to communicate that better to people who didn't search us out, that we're going to be found by people who never even thought Lutherans should do this or could do this. And right away, too, Gabrielle and I have been able to just somewhat out of necessity, out of the stress of the rest of our lives, but realize that we can only spin so many plates that we can that two people can part-time. So we've had to actually put plates down rather than thinking we're going to get to all of them. And that does mean having to disappoint some people by saying, yeah, we would love to do that, but we have to say no or put it off to later. And long term, we are looking to raise more funds and better leveraging of resources, meaning there are incredible organizations like Creation Justice Ministries that are meant to help support smaller eco-faith organizations like ours. We are already on their board, which I love being on their board, but that's just taking more of my staff time. What we could be doing more of is maybe more work sharing or maybe sharing more things like bookkeeping. So those are some of the things we're trying to think of, along with, the board originated with me asking people that I knew cared a lot about this, like Barbara, thank you, just calling them and saying, basically, I'm willing to try this out. This was back in 2017 where we wanted to be a nonprofit and just asking people, can you be my boss? Essentially. So now we need to kind of rethink that board structure rather than just knowing, and our board has always been a really appreciative and nurturing group of people, but we just kind of need to step it up a little bit more. So that, in essence, I also want to, that's where we're at right now, is a snapshot in time. Looking ahead to our relationship with ELCA, I'm so excited to know that with our new bishop on board, I'll put in the chat here if you want to open it at any point. It was very recently that Bishop Curry was able to lift up our Lutherans Restoring Creation voice when mentioning the fact that, even though the United States is not part of the Paris Climate Agreement, the ELCA is, and Bishop Curry lifted up our work. So I'm really grateful for that. And you can see that in that press release. I also just want to lift up that, and before we kind of close the recorded part so we can hash out some of your ideas and hear directly from you, I'm going to share Baird's invitation to you all, because you might have all seen it before, but once in a while, I just need to play it for myself. So I'm going to hit share. I still think this is the way to sum up what we do.
Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Well, here are the facts. These are true, and I don't feel free. I feel buried under facts. And while it is a fact that the world is getting dangerously hotter, that humans are to blame, and that we are running out of time, there's more to be said than can fit in the trend line of parts per million atmospheric analysis and the background extinction rate and congressional deadlocks and fossil fuel subsidies. The Earth is good. And it's not naive to believe that that fact matters just as much as the others. The Earth is good, and it is worth saving. It's worth serving. This world is worth serving. Isn't it worth believing in? Christians have a stubborn belief that the ultimate truth of the world is healing. That isn't a denial of death or woundedness. It's a refusal to let those facts crowd out the whole truth. The world in fear and despair and pain is in desperate need of faith, hope, and love. And so are we. These are gifts that God offers lavishly, foolishly, abundantly. We cannot do the work of serving this world if we are not rooting ourselves in the gifts that we need most of all. This is a call to everyone who feels buried alive under the weight of the climate disaster, who mourns what we have lost and fears what is to come. Do not do this alone. Faith, hope, and love are not luxuries. They are as essential as food and water and air. So come to the table, to the water, to the spirit of the one who loves you. Receive the love that you hope to give, wounded hand to wounded heart. May God Creator bless you and keep you. Amen.
Amen. And I am going to also invite you all to join us at Multiply in North Carolina, and I'll add the link. but I know a lot of you can't necessarily travel, and that is fine. That is mostly one of the reasons why we wanted to hear from all of you as to some of your reflections and what you love about Lutherans Restoring Creation or don't love and want to see us grow into. So that is one of the reasons that we would like to hear from you all as well. I am going to stop the recording. Is that okay? Gabrielle, did you have anything else you wanted to plug into the? Okay. And